Hey, hi everybody. Um, so I have another video for you, but before I make any of my videos, I just feel that I'm supposed to pray before each one. So dear Heavenly Father, I just pray for the words that I'm about to speak right now, that I will speak them and anything else that you wanted me to speak in a way that the people that you bring to my videos will understand, and just that it will be able to confirm things that they're searching and the questions that they have, that they will be answered through this, or things that you're wanting to be realized will be realized through this video. And I just pray that you do exactly what you're wanting to do through this with me and the people that will come to watch this. In Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen. Okay, so God's people need to basically stop doing what they're doing. I don't know how to say it another way. Some people don't even realize the call that they have on their life yet. But God has usually will put something in you, a feeling like you're supposed to be more than what you are right now. And that's usually from God. Not always, but it's from God. But the problem that I'm talking about is a lot of people aren't hearing anything from God because they're blocking themselves basically from hearing Him because of the sins that they're practicing, or the way that they're acting. God's trying to shatter all that and basically demolish all that you're doing in your lives. We're doing things that are hindering us from hearing Him. And that can be anything that we think is small, which could be gossiping about other people. Or it could be anything too as big as, I don't know, you name it. But there are things that are hindering us from God wanting to speak something to you. But when you're praying and you have so much commotion going on, so much distractions around here, that God can't get to you because you have so much gunk that you are holding on to. And God's basically saying, let go of it. Let go of it, my people. Because God's just saying, my children aren't listening. He's constantly speaking. He's actually not quiet. People think, well, God doesn't speak to me, but it's because you aren't listening. Or you are constantly speaking, praying, but you're not letting Him speak. And the more that you spend time with God, then the easier it'll be to figure out, is that me or is that God? Just as if with family members, you know who's speaking and you don't have to be in the same room. And that's how it is with God. He wants His people to speak for Him because our words have value, and I can reach so many people that the people on here can't reach, and you can reach so many people that I can't reach. He wants all the people that He's called to go out and speak for Him. But how can we if we have so much mess, How can God use us if we're following our own hearts, our own desires, instead of the things that God has for us? The enemy sees in the heavenly realm. He doesn't see the fullest as to what God has for us, but he sees in the heavenly realm. So he sees us like, basically say I'm walking down the street and I don't know the full extent of what God has for me, but he sees me and he's like, ooh, God has a call on her life, or ooh, God has a really big call on his life. Let me go pick on him. I want to give a little story. So maybe, I want to say 3, wow, it's been a long time, 3 years ago, I was taking the bus and I seen this homeless guy. He got on the bus, right? And he looked pretty gross, actually. Not kinda, he did look gross. But for whatever reason, I just kept watching him. And he sat next to somebody and they ignored him. He sat next to another person and tried talking to them and they just ignored him. And I just kept watching this guy. Then he sat in front of me. And then finally he got up and he sat next to me. And this is when I was doing a lot of bad stuff back then. And he's asked me, how's your day going? And I'm like, I've had better days. I don't know why. I was just honest with him. And I was like, but you know what? I'm doing good, And I started talking to him, and I was like, how are you doing? And he totally ignored what I asked him. And I was just talking with the guy. And when he looked at me, he, didn't look gross, but he didn't scare me at all. We weren't talking about God or anything. And I didn't tell him that the next stop was my stop. And he looks at me before I get off, and he goes, I just want you to know that the enemy works in mysterious ways. And then he just got off, and he went to the right, and I went to the left, right? And on the street that I'm on, it's a straight path both ways. It's a street called 99. You can go all the way from Seattle straight to California or straight to Canada. It's a straight path, so there's nowhere for the guy to turn. And I was like, why did he tell me that? And then I turned around to ask him, why did you tell me that? And he was gone. Just gone. And I was like, what the heck? And so I started running. I'm like, where did he go? And I realized later that I know that God sent an angel to tell me that. Because I started going through some pretty crazy stuff afterwards. And even now I think about that, because the enemy comes as an angel of light. And so he's going to disguise himself and try to put things in your path to sway you away from the things that God has from you. He can even put people that you think are friends on that path, and they can be godly people, but taking you away from the call that God has from you. And you have to really discern between people and choices that you make, even job choices. So to be aware that the enemy basically works in mysterious ways. He doesn't make everything so obvious that it's him. And that's basically what he's doing with God's kids. He's trying to derail them from the things that God has for you. And God just kept putting, and even before God was speaking this to me, I was praying, God, open my ears and my mouth, God, to you. Help me to follow your heart, and God, be my guide. Just let you be my guide, God. Be my guide. Because I need help with that. I can't do this on my own, None of us can. Then he started telling me all this, and then he gave me Jeremiah 9. And the whole thing is Jeremiah's crying for God's people, and it's talking about just all the things that they're doing, and it's not basically just the corrupt things and how they're not listening to God, and they're exactly what I'm telling you is what it's talking about, of how they were following their own hearts, and they were hardening their hearts towards God, and God was so angry with them, just not even with that, but God chose these people and kept telling them, I have this for you, I have this for you, I have this, I'm constantly providing for you, but you keep complaining, you can miss the good in a trial that God's doing for you, that you're going through, if you just keep complaining and not thanking God for the things that you do have, and not realizing, hey, maybe God wants me to grow through this hard thing that I'm going through, but instead you just constantly keep complaining, you're not going to learn anything from this trial. And and it's God's trying to strengthen you through these things that you're going through, but instead of you letting yourself be strengthened and pushing through and beating this thing that's coming against you, you're instead giving into it, and it's pushing you away from God. God does, there's nothing wrong with being tempted, there's nothing wrong with that. It talks about that in James, how There's nothing wrong with that. It's when you give in to temptation that leads to death. And that's what we see happening as well. People need God's people like to like good things fed to them. You know, who wouldn't like that? But they like to believe what they want to believe, what sounds good, how you can get to heaven just by being good, you know, and you don't need to stop doing this or stop doing this. Just if, you know, I'm a good person and I believe in God, that's good. Well, that's not true at all. There are things that you need to do and you need to stop doing, you know, to get to that and to get to heaven. And God's saying no more. Believe the truth. Believe the hard truth. The things that He's speaking to you. Believe that hard truth, because God's people need to realize that the things that are being fed to them, you need to ask God for discernment to discern the things that are being spoken to you. Is this from God or is this not from God? And open your heart and ask God to help me not to be guided by my own feelings. You know, God, guide me. Have you basically be my hands and be the mouthpiece. I don't know. Speak through me. Speak through me, God. And I said this in my last video. A storm is coming, but what God told me is that a great morning is going to be coming for His people. But what you need to realize is that you need to know that God is always with you. And God will prepare you and tell you things if you just need to realize it. Like, right now, so one thing, my dad is in prison right now. And, the phone calls with my mom just haven't been getting easy, and he's just been saying some stuff, you know, that the enemy's feeding to him. And it's like, that's hard, you know. And I find out that my mom has cancer. And what's crazy is how I said God will put that feeling in you and know, you know, like you're going to be something big. God will speak to you before some things happen. My mom was going to the doctors to get tested for something, and they said that it may be cancer. And God just put something in me that it was cancer, and I knew that when the results came back that she was going to have cancer. And the night before we got the call, He just kept speaking to me and giving me verses on trusting Him, trusting Him, trusting Him. I don't have any fear that she's going to die. I have faith in God that this trial is to strengthen us for the time to come, because times on this earth are just going to get harder. And if we can't get through the storms that are coming through now and be strong through this and lean on God, then how can we have the strength to get through the hard things that God is wanting us, that we're going to go through, and what God's wanting us to speak? If we don't have the strength now, then how can we be ready for the harder things that God has for us? You know, God, and also not to be rude or anything, but a lot of us are lost, and we've lost our navigation, and we just need to be guided back to God. We need to ask God to be our guide. And just the enemy, there's a fight going against God's people and the enemy's people, so we just need to be ready to fight and to put on our armor daily. Ephesians 6, read that chapter. Put your armor on daily and be ready to fight against the enemy. Because you know what? He's a cunning man, I don't know what to call him. He's cunning, and we just need to be ready to fight and to realize the things that he is putting against us. So that's what I have to say, and I hope that everybody on this receives it to the fullest extent, and have a blessed rest of your day. All right.